The path. It's such a simple idea, isn't it? Our sources today define it as just a space of defined width on the ground for people to pass.
So simple.
But it's what happens on that space that matters.
Exactly. If you start to overlay that simple line with accumulated time, with all the choices people have made, the will to climb, to turn back, or, to just stop, that road becomes something else. It becomes a historical trajectory.
It really does. It holds the weight of every single life that's ever passed over it. And that is the core tension we are digging into today.
It's this meeting point, this convergence of past choices, especially really desperate ones, with a present-day effort.
We're looking at one specific stretch of road in South Korea and examining the immense historical weight it carries, a weight that you can almost feel in every single meter of pavement.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore that convergence. We're looking at a modern sporting event, the 9th Chilgok County Governor's Baeseokjae Hill Climb competition, and one of the most critical moments in Korean history, the Battle of Dabudong, which took place in August of 1950.
And the sources we've been analyzing pull from personal reflections of a cyclist in that modern race, but also from historical combat accounts and some really deep analysis.
And all of it connects that physical strain, cycling a grueling 19.8-kilometer uphill course directly back to the incredible sacrifice made on that exact same ground so many years ago.
Our goal here is to really understand how the peace we see today, the simple freedom for a cyclist to just ride their bike, is what the sources call a gift of time.
A gift built on desperate endurance. We're tracing that historical trajectory, not in some dusty textbook, but on a modern bicycle path.
To really get that, though, we have to go back. We have to start in 1950, the crisis leading up to the Battle of Dabudong. It's almost unimaginable.
It was. When the North Korean invasion began, June 25th at 4 a.m., the speed of the collapse was just terrifying.
And the South Korean military was just immediately outmatched. What was the biggest tactical disadvantage they were facing in those first days?
It really came down to armor and mobility. The invading forces used huge numbers of Soviet T-34 tanks. The defending ROK Republic of Korea forces, they were severely lacking heavy weaponry.
So they had no answer for the tanks.
No answer at all. They had no way to reliably stop that armor. Seoul fell in just 3 days. By the end of July, the entire front line had basically collapsed. The sources say 90% of the country was occupied.
It really sounds like the war was already lost at that point. How did they even manage to stabilize enough to form a final defense line?
It was very nearly lost. Stabilization was incredibly difficult. The ROK and the arriving UN forces, you had troops from the US, the UK, Australia, 16 nations in total. They were pushed back relentlessly.
Right, into that small pocket around Busan.
Exactly. That defensive area, anchored by the Nakdong River, was designated as the final line. It was known as the Busan Perimeter.
And the Battle of Dabudong is right in the middle of that perimeter on the western flank.
That's right. Dabudong was, you could argue, the last breathing room. It was a set of ridges that, if they were lost, would have sealed the fate of the entire war. The areas there, Wagwan, Gaseonsong, this was where the future of the Korean Peninsula was decided.
It was the tipping point, whether the country would fall or find a way to rise again.
Yes. It was that critical.
So what was it actually like on the ground? During the fighting in August and September, the sources paint a picture that's just brutal.
The intensity was horrific because the stakes were so high. The fighting was mostly for the high ground, these ridges and peaks. Control of them would change hands multiple times a day.
I can't even imagine that pressure.
No. Smoke was constantly flowing from Pulgongsan Mountain, just covering the sky. And the heat. The summer heat of August made everything worse.
And the smell. The sources mention the smell.
They do. The air itself smelled constantly of gunpowder, but also of decaying corpses. The bodies were piling up like mountains. And yet, in all this chaos, the soldiers and the student volunteers, they were fighting with this unbelievable, desperate resolve.
That's where we get that quote, that mindset of the defenders. If we retreat here, it's over. One account even talks about using the bodies of fallen friends as shields.
It wasn't just battlefield strategy. It was a final, agonizing push for sheer existence.
But the story is bigger than just the soldiers on the line. The very terrain of Dabudong created another massive challenge.
It did. The ruggedness, those steep, rocky mountainsides, made traditional logistics basically impossible.
Which brings us to the hidden heroes of this battle. Let's talk about the Jijbudae, the A-frame corps. These weren't soldiers.
Not at all. And this is where the civilian effort becomes this strategic lifeline. Regular supply trucks, they couldn't navigate those steep slopes to get to the peaks where the fighting was heaviest.
So the Jijbudae stepped in.
They did. They carried essential supplies and, most critically, ammunition on these traditional Korean A-frames, the Jij. They kept the guns firing, nothing else could.
And we should emphasize these were not just drafted logistics guys. They were civilians walking right into the line of fire. What drove them to do that?
It was a mix of things. For some, it was the immediate need to feed their families. For others, it was just raw, desperate patriotism. They knew what was at stake.
They were carrying the materials that allowed those soldiers who were already at their absolute limit to keep fighting.
Imagine hauling 50 or 60 pounds of artillery shells on a steep hill in the August heat while being shelled. It's staggering.
And that brings us to the story of Do Yong-bok. It's a story that just crystallizes the sacrifice. It's hard to believe we're talking about a 7-year-old child.
The story of Do Yong-bok is, well, it's essential to understanding this. He was only 7, and his motivation was so simple and so heartbreaking. He carried ammunition to earn enough to feed his 2 younger siblings.
It wasn't about patriotism for him, it was just survival for his family.
Exactly. And the sources tell us about the terror he went through. While walking that path, carrying his Jij, he watched 2 of his young friends get shot down by bullets.
A 7-year-old, how do you even process that and then choose to go back the next day?
He was terrified. The account says he seriously thought about quitting, just throwing the A-frame down and running. But that responsibility for his family, it was greater than his terror. He shouldered the Jij again the next day.
He was literally carrying the fate of his family on his back.
Symbolically, yes. And in a way, the fate of his community.
That connection between that past effort and the physical terrain today is what makes this so powerful. The author of one source reflects that the Chilgok Hill, the one they now climb on a bicycle.
It must still remember the weight and fear carried by that child.
Yes, and it transforms the whole physical act of climbing into a direct conversation with history.
It does. The path itself becomes this layered thing, holding the memory of 1950 and the peace of today. The road isn't neutral.
So let's jump back to the present. The author is riding in this hill climb. It's a 19.8-kilometer race, and they're riding alongside their son, Sang-jun,
Who got 4th place in his division, which is pretty amazing.
It is. And this event is specifically designed to make you think about the Dabudong battle.
And that physical effort, pedaling up that exact same hill, is described as following the historical trajectory of the past. But the difference in experience is just immense.
Right. Today's pain is chosen. It's a sport. The pain of 1950 was non-negotiable survival.
That's the key irony. The cyclist today struggles, they feel their limits, but at the end of it, you get a medal, maybe a cold drink.
The soldiers in the Jij Corps struggled under the absolute threat of death, and the prize was the survival of their country.
And this contrast is why the sources offer such a great metaphor about the nature of the uphill climb, the uphill.
What's so interesting is the distinction the sources make. They say the uphill doesn't test you. It's not a pass-fail exam.
Exactly. The path is neutral. It merely reveals you. The hill doesn't care who you are, what kind of bike you have. It just reveals your speed, your stamina, your weaknesses, right there on the pavement.
It's a mirror, not an examiner.
A perfect way to put it.
And if we connect that back to the war, that's a really profound analogy. Just as the hill reveals the rider today, the extremity of war revealed the essential nature of the people of 1950.
The war didn't create heroism or desperation. It exposed it. It stripped everything else away and revealed this raw patriotism, this will to defend their homes at any cost.
So what the author found, writing with his son, was this profound sense of gratitude. The quiet mountains, the peaceful villages, the freedom to just ride with your child. That's not an accident.
It's the gift of time. And it was created entirely by the sacrifice made on that same ground. It confirms that history isn't some distant echo in a museum.
It's reborn every moment on the path we're on right now.
That ride in Chilgok was a confirmation of that. The ground under their tires is the birthplace of that ongoing history. They were physically peddling the peace that others fought so desperately to establish.
So, to synthesize this for everyone listening, we started this deep dive with a modern bike race. But we ended up in a desperate struggle for a nation's existence. The simple act of climbing a hill today can be a physical engagement with the foundation of peace.
That hill climb wasn't just about finishing a race. It was about honoring that deep foundational resilience, that desperate endurance of those who came before.
It's a reminder that Any achievement today, whether it's finishing a grueling race or just enjoying a quiet journey, is only possible because of that gift of time.
We can't take the flatness of the road for granted.
Which takes us right back to the start. The sources define the path as the place where you feel fully alive. So if the roads you travel today are layered with the weight and the sacrifices of those who walked before us, carrying ammunition, defending a final line, what weight are you choosing to put on your own path?
That's a powerful question.
When you face your own uphill struggles, big or small, think about how your effort, your choices are contributing to the peace and the foundation that others fought so desperately to establish for the future. That is a thought worth carrying with you on your next journey.
새벽 안개 거친 칠곡의 길 위 바람 따라 내 페달이 깨어나네 낙동강 물결은 고요 흐르고 그 아래 잠들어 있던 시간이 나를 부르네 외관 철교 위로 햇살이 번지면 그날의 외침이 귓가에 스며와 이 길을 지켜라 끝까지